members. Thank you. Live from Maryland Public Television, this is Direct Connection with Jeff Salkin.
Good evening. Welcome to your Direct Connection. Tonight we connect you with ideas for turning around Baltimore. The city just hit 100 homicides for the year. That is on pace for another year over 300. And over the weekend, things got worse. A young mother was hit by gunfire in southwest Baltimore, also struck her two young children, ages 1 and 2, hit by a bullet each. All three are still being treated. That happened in the Carrollton Ridge neighborhood. Joining us now is Cindy Tensley, who is the president of the neighborhood association there. Cindy, thank you so much for your time. Tell me about your neighborhood. I know you've been in the same house there since the 1980s.
Correct. That's correct, Jeff. Our community is a working neighborhood, and it's gone through some changes over the years. In the early 80s, our problem was drinking, and now the problem, of course, as in many neighborhoods, is drugs, prostitution, violence. It's a low economic neighborhood. We have a plethora of vacant buildings, vacant houses, which is an open invitation for those who are homeless, those who are addicted. They have the drugs and they have the free housing, which is something that we're battling, as are many other communities in the city. But we do have a core group of citizens who are working to try to stabilize our community, who are involved, but it's just not enough. We don't have enough of our residents who are involved, who are helping. We've gone through a cultural change in our neighborhood. Whereas we had a lot of people who were involved in the community, now we have people who are moving in who are not. Part of that due to the high rent. They can't maintain it, so they move out. The other part is that some of them are being brought in by drug dealers and those associated with that culture. And their loyalty is to that system and not to the city and not to the community association, but to those who are perpetrators of that system.
You told me on the phone earlier that in your view, the drug dealers are in charge.
They think they're in charge. I refuse to believe that they're in charge, although they have told our residents to chill because they're taking over the neighborhood. We have too many residents who are afraid to tell them to get off their steps because of fear of retaliation. We have too many residents who are fearful of calling the police. One of our neighbors has likened our neighborhood to New Jack City, where the drug dealers had taken over an apartment building. Well, our community is like New Jack City expanded, in that it's a whole community that they're trying to take over. They've really infiltrated it.
You had the new mayor was in your neighborhood over the weekend. The police chief knocking on doors, and reportedly told that nobody was gonna share any information with him.
It's just that blanket of fear that's within the neighborhood, again, because it's a small neighborhood. A lot of people know everyone, and people are afraid even sometimes to associate with us because we're too linked to the police. Block watchers, as they say, snitches. But what I try to tell people, that snitches are the criminals who tell on their friends and their comrades, whereas concerned citizens are those who care about their community and want to see a change and will speak up and say that this is enough. I don't know what it's going to take for enough to be enough.
So how do we improve things? How do we fix things? You told me earlier that you support the idea of making use of the National Guard, maybe more technology, drones. What do you have in mind?
Well, not just National Guard. I'm not talking about martial law. That's kind of Cold War. But even something new to address this 21st century of violence involving the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. And I know that because of posse comitatus, that there's a limit on how you can use federal forces within a state. But there have been exceptions when the life and liberty of the citizens have been at risk. And I believe that President Obama also made use of that during his term of presidency.
Is there anything you want the politicians, the police to know overall, or you know, about your street, your neighborhood, that maybe they don't?
I don't think there's too much more that they don't know, except maybe who some of the key players are. It's such a complex, there's no easy solution. I don't believe that any one person has the answer, but I do believe that it will take the community working with city government, all forms of city government, all departments. You can't leave anybody out. That includes Department of Public Works, Police Department, that includes the state's attorney's office, that includes Department of Planning, the community itself. We all need to be brought to the table and to think outside the box of what we can do. I know years ago when we were talking about, everybody was asking for foot patrol, and we were told that technology was going to be better than the actual foot patrol. Well, we've had technology and things aren't better. And now it's almost a little bit too late for the foot patrol, because the community, just like many other communities, are so saturated. From 6 blocks away, they can notify each other when they see a foot patrol person coming. But if you saturate the streets, the alleys, and I'm not talking about for 6 months, because they can outwait 6 months, because their people live in the neighborhood that are loyal to them. They can outwait 6 months, but I'm talking about something sustained for 1 to 3 year periods of time, so that the people in the community can begin to have confidence and courage to actually participate, to engage, to speak out. But right now, there's just not that feeling of safety that they can be protected.
Lastly, you told me on the phone that despite all of this, you are an optimist and that the neighborhood is coming back and one day it's going to be great again.
Oh yeah, I firmly believe that the Lord has good plans for Carrollton Ridge. And that it will be a model community for the good and not for the bad that it is right now. And I also want to say that we are so thankful for our heroes in blue, our men and women who put their lives on the line every day. Not just them, but also the fire department, to come into our community and suffer often the disrespect that they have to put up with. We so are appreciative of them and their efforts. There's just not enough of them.
Thank you so much. That is Cindy Tensley, president of the Carrollton Ridge Association. Appreciate your time. Best of luck. Joining us now in the studio is Kay Whitehead, Communications and African American Studies professor at Loyola University and host of Today with Dr. Kay on WEAA Radio. It's good to see you again.
It's good to see you as well. Thank you for inviting me back.
Glad to have you. You talk about this stuff a lot. You study it. How did Baltimore get to this point?
What's interesting is that Baltimore City has been on this path for quite a long time. When we look at the history of the city, the redlining, the decades of oppression, the decades of mismanagement of city funds, the ways in which our schools have been crumbling and the infrastructure is falling apart, the deep economic segregation, the ways in which the city has propped up and supported the neighborhoods in the so-called white L communities, which are the economic advantage, predominantly white communities, versus the underdevelopment, the predominantly black the black butterfly, right. Economically challenged.
Like that.
Yeah, so it makes kind of a butterfly shape around the white L of the city. If you take a look at that and you dig down into the decades of oppression, you understand that Baltimore now, it's only manifesting what's been happening in this city for a very long time. The frustration that we have is to get down to trying to solve the problem of Baltimore City. You got to dig so far down to get to the root of how we got here to figure out how we can move forward.
What's different, though, about other cities with similar histories that are doing better at the moment? I'm thinking about D.C., New York City crime rates declining. Here, the homicide rate's about steady, but the number of shootings is said to be up 20% this year.
What's interesting is that I'm from Washington, D.C., and I grew up during a time when we were called the murder capital of the world.
Right.
When there was a sense that Washington, D.C. was going to be written off, that we were not going to make it. It was Chocolate City at that moment. And now when I go back into DC and I look at the gentrification, I look at the ways in which neighborhoods have changed, and gentrification in terms of economic development is not a negative thing. I'm not saying it's completely negative. I'm saying the ways in which they moved out pockets of Black people who were economically challenged, moved them out of the city, and then focus on developing the city from the inside out. I lived in New York during the reign of Bill Bratton, when you were talking about the police commissioner who came down from Boston. And he set up what we call the quality of life crimes, going through and arresting people for small crimes, whether they were jumping the turnstile, whether they were having loud music playing in the street, putting them in the system. So when they got to a point of the 3 strikes, they were able to be arrested. Really draconian politics for the city, but that was the base, the foundation for getting New York City where it is today. So now, when we look at Baltimore City, then what needs to be done? Do we need to completely gentrify it? Do we need draconian politics? Or do we need to bring in a team, and perhaps some of them are already in office, a team of people who are willing to look at the structural problems and look at ways to actually solve them while investing in the people, in our schools, in our communities, in our children? Because if we don't invest in the people of Baltimore City, then people are going to continue to move out of here, and we're not going to be able to stabilize the economic front.
Let me remind our viewers, if you'd like to join the conversation, if you have a question or a suggestion, you can give us a call. We'll have the number up on the screen. You can also email your questions. The email address is livequestions@mpt.org. Some people familiar with the state budget would look at it and say, we're sending a ton of money to Baltimore. I don't know what it is, 3/4 of the school budget. There's $1 billion in school construction money funded by the state going on. What's it going to take to make a difference?
Well, it's interesting because when I go and I listen to Dr. Santelisa's talk about, all the money that's been allocated for Baltimore City and the ways in which she has to fight to get the money into the school systems are so destroyed. The school systems are in such a bad shape. The schools themselves have their buildings where the ceilings are falling in, where you can't drink the water, where they don't have the supplies they need, they don't have the actual infrastructure to have a safe, secure environment for our children. We're talking about billions of dollars needed to build that up. We have, I think, only 21 21st century schools. We need a lot more of that if we want to really start dealing with education. But education is only one of the problems in Baltimore City. We also have to look at our communities. The fact that you don't have rec centers, you don't have green spaces, you don't have places for young people to go after school, that's another issue. I mean, if you keep compounding each issue, you talk about the lack of employment for certain community residents. If you look at Sandtown Winchester, for example, which was just noted as one of the most dangerous neighborhoods in the world, you look at what's happening there in terms of the underemployment, in terms of the neighborhoods, in terms of the lack of city services. And then you add in 2 other big problems where you're dealing with the homicides, and we have to think about what is happening where shootings are going up. What is taking place in our community where there's a sense that the only way that you can solve your problems is with the level of violence that we're seeing? And then the second thing is the opioid crisis, which we can't discount that Baltimore is now called the opioid capital. And I think that's another issue impacting our city. So we're getting it from all fronts here.
Let's grab a phone call. Baltimore City, this is Isaac. Isaac, thanks for the call. Go ahead.
I'm listening, and thank you for taking my call. This is a wonderful subject, and really, I'm a Baltimorean. I've grown up in Baltimore. I'm listening, and this lady is really on point. I've got a question for Maryland Public TV. Maybe we can start to have this Baltimore City to talk to Baltimore City, where we are all sitting down, residents, law enforcement. We need to sit down. Baltimore has to be healed from inside, and we really need the assistance of organizations like Johns Hopkins, University of Maryland Social Work. But at the point of it is, Baltimore needs to build a dialogue of communication. Our youth feel as though we're not listening to them. I work with troubled youth, one of the hardest parts of Baltimore City. I won't use his name, but I'm so glad that you're taking on this topic. But when I look how we can go into another country and rebuild Afghanistan and Iraq, why aren't we trying to focus on first eliminating the problems? And one of the biggest problems in the black community is economic. Another problem is lack of training. A large portion of Baltimore City youth and also some adults have records. Maryland at one time was leading the nation in reentry. It seems that Maryland has dropped the ball in the area of getting not just offenders, but people who are trying to get back to the real type of life.
Isaac, I apologize. Time is short, but let's get to your points. Dr. Kay's been taking notes.
Yes, I have, because I think that Isaac raises a number of good points. One, about this dialogue of communication. I would push back just a little bit, because there are a lot of community groups that are already doing this. I think about Leaders of a Beautiful Struggle. I think about the work Erica Bridgeford is doing with Baltimore Ceasefire. I think about the work in the schools with the Baltimore Algebra Project, just to name a few. There are a number of community-based organizations that are already working on setting up this dialogue of communication. I think we need more than that.
You mentioned earlier, you're talking about Bratton and zero tolerance in New York City, or whatever they called it at the time. It was tried here, and it's seen now in hindsight to have been a negative by many people. But we just heard the community association leader in Southwest Baltimore, who's open to the idea of having the National Guard help out. Is there a reason not to strengthen policing as part of this?
Well, I think policing is probably one of the reasons why we have gotten
and I
here.
haven't brought up Freddie Gray yet, but I was going to get there.
Yes, I mean, if we go back and we take a look at what 4 years ago,
right,
prior to the murder of Freddie Gray and the Baltimore uprising, Baltimore homicide numbers were actually on a downslope, right? They were 200, less than 200. I think one year was 194. And ever since 2015, ever since the uprising, ever since we've been dealing with the consent decree, ever since we've been talking about the ways in which there's predatory policing in certain communities in Baltimore City, ever since we have noticed that there was a difference. Even when Mayor Stephanie Rollins Blake enacted a curfew, there were some of us who were able to go out in our communities and take pictures and put it on Twitter saying there's a curfew, but not in this community, that only certain communities were impacted by that. What we found after 2015 is that, and this is very obvious because the police would talk about it and we've seen it, there was a pullback in policing. So people in certain communities would call the cops and the cops wouldn't show up for a while, or they wouldn't be as actively involved. Now, I am not saying we need to go back to predatory policing. I also think that the point we're at now, where there seems to be very little regard for the need for policing in certain communities, there has to be a middle ground where the police and the community can work together, and the police can recognize the humanity of the residents in which they're working with. Recognize that they have the right to be treated with respect, the same way they do when they go in other communities and there's an issue. They treat them like residents, like they are important, like they matter, and not that they are suspicious and dangerous, and they're to be policed and controlled.
Kay Whitehead, time is short. I apologize. Yes. We'll have you back. We appreciate your time here, and people can hear you on WEAA Radio 3 to 5?
88.9, 3 to 5, every single day, Monday through Friday, Today with Dr. K.
Professor, thank you very much. Coming up next on Direct Connection, we'll hear from one of the people who would like to be Baltimore's next mayor. We'll be right back.
Got an unused vehicle going nowhere? Donate it to the one place that can take you any place. Visit mpt.org/vehicles and support the programs you love on MPT.
The MPT app puts our programs right at your fingertips, so you can choose when to watch, what to watch, wherever you want to watch it. Download it now.
Are you turning 70 and a half this year? If so, you generally have to start spending down your retirement account. Even the minimum distribution can place you in a sticky situation. Luckily, you can now use your IRA to make tax-free gifts. Gifts up to $100,000 will never count as income, but always make a difference. That's icing on the cake.
Make your gift for this year before December 31st. Visit mpt.org/support.
Joining us now from City Hall, where there has been some political change lately, this gentleman would like to see more of it. He is Thiru Vignarajah, a partner in DLA Piper and a candidate for mayor. Thiru, thanks for your time. Why are you running for mayor?
Great to be here, Jeff. Thanks so much for having me. I'm running for mayor because I love this city, and we're a city in absolute crisis. Over the last couple of weeks, over the last couple of months, over the last couple of years, we have seen a city that has been ravaged by crime, by corruption. These headlines of crime and corruption are not just dominating local headlines, Jeff, they are defining the narrative of Baltimore nationally, and we can do something about it. There is no city in America that has a bigger difference between where we are and where we could be. But we can't get there if we don't address these problems of crime and corruption. I spent my career as a public servant, as a federal prosecutor, as city prosecutor, and then as Deputy Attorney General of Maryland. And we have an opportunity to not rely on the failed playbook of yesteryear, to not rely on the career politicians, but to try to do something new, to try to do something ambitious, but to try to do something where we have a plan and a vision for how to get this city back on track.
Well, as a former prosecutor, give me some concrete ideas. What, as mayor, could you do that would make a difference and make a difference quickly?
It's such an important question because fighting crime, fixing a city, it's a marathon and a sprint. There are some long-term investments that all of us recognize we have to make, but we also have to take those short-term steps to really staunch the bleeding. We need to make sure that our officers are focusing on the right kinds of cases against the right kinds of criminals. When I was a federal prosecutor, when I was a local prosecutor, we used to focus on the most violent neighborhoods and focus on bringing to justice the gangs that were ravaging those neighborhoods. You know, Carrollton Ridge is no stranger, unfortunately, to violence. This past weekend's tragedy, 19 shootings across the city, 6 dead. The event of Friday night brought into sharp relief what's happening in Carrollton Ridge, but that's not something new. When I went out there on Friday night, I got a chance to talk to some of the residents, and I said, as a candidate, I'm pledging to you that I'm going to fix this. We're going to do something about this because you guys are experiencing a shooting every other day. This is just the one where the cameras came out. And one of them laughed and said, "It's not every other day, Mr. Vignarajah. It's every day. It's every night. Our kids don't even go for the floor anymore because it's background noise." That's a neighborhood where we ought to be building intelligence, deploying undercovers, doing wiretaps, bringing to justice the gangs that are driving not just the drug trade, but the violence that is part of that drug trade. We should be doing that in 12 different neighborhoods that account for a huge percentage of the homicides all across the city.
Well, let me interrupt to ask this. Who is going to do that when you keep hearing that the city police force is 500 officers short of its authorized strength?
No, you're absolutely right. We cannot sit here and try to fight a fire that is burning down the building with half a fire department, and we can't police a city with half a police force. We absolutely need to make sure that we replenish the ranks of the police department. But what I'm talking about in the short term doesn't require thousands of officers. We're talking about a couple of detectives, a couple of prosecutors doing the kind of surgical investigations that we did in Cherry Hill, that we did in Greenmount, where Barclay was defined by violence for 5 years, and then we had an 18-month period where there wasn't a single murder. We can do that again. We know what the playbook is that works. It doesn't require mass incarceration. It doesn't require mandatory minimums. It requires partnership with our federal and local law enforcement agencies. It requires us to work hard to identify the right targets. But Jeff, you're right. We do need to, in the long term, the medium term, make sure we have enough officers, because one of the reasons there aren't detectives doing those cases is those detectives are being put out on patrol, and we need them on patrol, but we can't have a burglary unit that has no burglary detectives, which is what we've had for the last 18 months. We can't have homicide detectives that are only solving 29% of homicides, also splitting their duty with overtime patrol shifts. It's asking too much of an agency that is already strained to the breaking point.
We've heard a lot of negative stuff, a lot of concerns over the past 25 minutes. But let me be an optimist here for a second and say that, we have a new well-regarded police chief. We have a new mayor as of tonight. There's a new city council president. There's maybe some stability at City Hall. And is it possible that the city has hit bottom and the consent decree and everything with the police department is starting to heal that, and things are going to naturally get better?
God, I hope so. I mean, it's hard to imagine the city being in worse shape. We've been so distracted by the corruption headlines that have dominated local headlines. You know, from the day that the story broke in the Baltimore Sun to the day last week that Mayor Pugh resigned was 7 weeks. And in those 49 days, there were 45 murders, and nobody was talking about them. I hope that now that that is behind us, at least in some meaningful sense, that Commissioner Harrison and the leadership in the city council, as well as the mayor, can start focusing on getting this city on track. But it's not going to happen in a few weeks or a few months. It requires a game plan, and we've had a deficit of leadership, not just for these past couple of months while we've been distracted by this headline. We've had a deficit of leadership for years. When you hear Miss Cindy, when you hear Dr. Whitehead talk about these systemic challenges, they trace back to periods of time desperately in our past. But there is a period not that long ago when we were fighting crime effectively, when not only were arrests coming down year after year, not only were we putting in jail young black men for petty offenses.
I apologize.
Less and less.
Time
we were also
is short.
Having many fewer homicides.
We're going to have to leave it there. Through Vigdaraja is running for mayor. Sir, thank you for the time. Thank you for joining us for Direct Connection. We're back Thursday with your money and business. Have a good night.
This program was made by MPT to serve all of our diverse communities.